We're far enough away from the 80s now that we can view it as the decade we've left behind. But there are still some things from the 80s that are with us, and some things that just lay dormant, waiting to pop up like a time capsule filled with leg warmers, Sony Walkmans, and Frankie Says Relax t-shirts.
Is it Walkmans or Walkmen?
It's one of the great mysteries left to us by the 80s.
And another thing left to us by the 80s is a huge number of popular characters, most of which were designed specifically to sell action figures. And yet, most of them continue to be popular today, with ongoing comic titles and fresh new adventures.
And the granddaddy of them all has got to be the real American hero, G.I. Joe.
Yo, Joe!
Thank you.
Had to.
Yes. This Marvel comic began in 1981, and the Joes have been duking it out with Cobra ever since. Yes, pun intended.
But times have changed, and in Volume 1 of G.I. Joe Homefront, written by Fred Van Lente with art by Steve Kurth, the Joes have been put under the media spotlight for the first time. No longer able to work in secret, they have to worry about things like bad publicity and effective marketing in between covert assault missions. It's an interesting direction to take the story, and it cleverly mirrors the title's real-life efforts to remain contemporary and relevant.
It does sometimes feel like an awkward fit, though. The tongue-in-cheek humour starts well, with Shipwreck complaining about his outfit making him look like a cartoon duck, but swiftly becomes laboured and a little desperate. For example, the inclusion of a perky young social media officer codenamed Hashtag was a low point of this volume for me.
It was a bit hit and miss as far as the humour went, and I also had some issues with the pacing, but I do appreciate a lot of what this comic is trying to do in terms of modernisation.
Sure.
And I think Kurth did a good job on the artwork.
Yes, I agree with you there, yep.
So I'm going to give it a borrow.
Cool, well, I didn't enjoy this one quite so much. I felt like it never figured out what it wanted to be. There was self-awareness running headlong into tired macho cliches and jokes that just didn't land. I'm going to give it a berry.
Fair enough. Well, now we'll move on to another hero who is synonymous with action figures, accessories sold separately. Issue 1 of He-Man The Eternity War drops us right in the middle of an Eternia in direst peril. Hordak's evil horde has invaded the planet, taken over Castle Grayskull, and driven the Resistance back to the last place you would ever expect: Skeletor's former base of operations, Snake Mountain.
And if none of this made a lick of sense to you, then this is probably not the comic you're looking for. Although this first issue does go to pains to provide exposition, it's still probably only going to appeal to true He-Man fans. Luckily, I happen to be one of those fans, and I really loved it. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of this. It's a buy from me.
Yeah, I think Dan Abnett is onto something with the darker, grittier tone of this story, while Pop Munn is largely staying true to the classic character models, but isn't afraid to go larger than life or delve into the grotesque. I'm interested to see where this title goes. I'm going to give it a buy as well.
Awesome, and as it is just not the 80s without big hair and a shiny outfit, we come to Red Sonja. Written by Gail Simone with art by Walter Giovanni, issue 13 of Red Sonja marks the beginning of a new story arc for the she-devil with a sword that will put her up to her neck in magic, mystery, and long-delayed revenge.
I'm a fan of Simone's writing, particularly for Red Sonja, but I found some of the dialogue in this issue to be a little stilted. Not so much that became a problem, just slightly off in the rhythm. With that said, it's a solid start to the story arc, with Sonja falling victim to a wizard's curse and incurring the wrath of the wizard's just as unpleasant brother. I'm going to give this one a borrow.
Oh, see, I didn't see a problem with that at all, and I thought Giovanni did great artwork in this one, bringing a real humanity to all the characters, and I especially loved his work on Sonya's facial expressions.
Sure.
I loved it. I'm giving it a buy.
So there you have it, 3 80s heroes who are still going strong and living life to the full.
Yes, and there are heaps more like Transformers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that are still just as popular. But which 80s character would you like to be brought back in their own comic series? Oh, perhaps Lone Star.
Or my personal favourite, Mask.
Ah, the Mobile Armoured Strike Command.
Yes, I know they need to realise that Command doesn't start with a K, but their enemies were Venom, the vicious, evil network of mayhem.
Yes.
Now that is a club who know exactly what they're about, and they don't care what you think.